Welcome to Greenville Academically Speaking, a weekly presentation by the University Center of Greenville at McAllister Square, designed to showcase the teaching and research interests of faculty from the center's 7 affiliated universities. Now your host, Joan Martin.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us here again on Greenville Academically Speaking. Our guest once again, and this is the third Saturday that we have Dr. David Shaner with us. Dr. Shaner is Professor of Philosophy and Asian Studies, as well as Chair of the Department of Philosophy at Furman University. Thank you for coming back again.
Thank you, Joan. It's a pleasure to be here again. I'm getting used to your studio.
Yes, that's
here.
true. You're beginning to feel at home.
Yeah.
Right? Not getting used to the coffee, though.
No. It still has that kind of bitter taste.
I know. It's not Starbucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I do want to get into your work at Furman and how this relates to Furman and the Asian studies. But last week, we were talking about the books. You've written 2 books that are published. You have 2 other books in the works. You're going to New York next week. You already have a literary agent. I'm so impressed. Speaking as someone who has a multitude of rejection slips, I never have latched on. So you're halfway home with that. I think that's great.
Well, thank you. I'm optimistic, but it's as I said, writing for a general audience is an eye-opening experience. Yeah. And we've got a lot of academics out there.
Yeah.
For most of my academic career, I would poo-poo the books, the self-help books,
right,
the change books, whatever. Going, this is like pop psychology. But I've got a much deeper level of respect to try to take complex ideas and communicate them not in academic, the academic veneer. We tend to hide behind our vocabulary and just say it straight out. I've had a heck of a time just trying to write differently.
But your books, if they work, they're fantastic, and we're going to find out.
We have to finish those arts.
Yes, we have to finish.
How many did we get through last time?
We got through 3, but the books are both called Connect. The first one is Connect: 7 Arts for Positive Personal Improvement. The other one is Connect: 7 Arts for what is it?
Positive organizational transformation,
right?
Or
but
improvement.
They really dovetail into each other. Last week, on the personal side was preparation. You start with preparation, translated into assessment for business. Correct?
Right.
The next one was compassion, which translates into
meaningful participation.
Okay, and then responsibility
translates into accountability.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now number 4, you're up to number 4 is relaxation. How does this factor into changing?
Well, as I mentioned to you, these are all sequential. You can't skip steps. So
let me just stop you right there. How long do you have? All right, I'm preparing to lose 15 pounds. So I prepare. I look in the mirror and I say, I'm serious. How long do I have to mentally prepare for that?
Well, for every person, it's different. I think last week I probably gave a not so pleasant example of an alcoholic waking up in the alley having passed out. That kind of experience can be a giant wake-up call that some people say is quote unquote a significant emotional event, right? But for others, if it's just I've been trying to lose weight my whole life unsuccessfully, then there's not this event that you can kind of piggyback on.
Exactly.
So in the book, I talk about strategies to kind of get to that level.
Okay, so you do help us work through this.
And remember, the second stage, that art of compassion, is, we don't always get it right the first time.
That's right, and don't be so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, because what happens when you don't get it right? You give up.
Yeah, that's
but see,
true.
If you're practicing the art of compassion that includes self-compassion, then maybe it's okay to forgive yourself for slipping.
Right.
You just mentioned, we were talking earlier before we went on air about your house guests.
Right.
And because of that, you're going out to dinner a little bit more, trying to be festive, making that pasta, right? And that's okay. You don't beat yourself up. Your guests leave and you get on the scale and you say, it's okay, I was entertaining guests, so I'll just continue where I was, as opposed to, woe is me, I'm so bad, I didn't do it. Once again, this diet isn't working.
Yeah.
Anyway, so from the art of compassion, we discussed last week that leads to the art of responsibility, because you recognize in any relationship, or even if you're
even with yourself,
in other words, self-compassion is a relationship with yourself. Then when you understand the level of connection that we really have in this world, then if you're going to be responsible, or if you're going to manage change, you have to look responsibility in the face. And I said, that's kind of the tough love. And remember last week, just to help you remember, and the audience perhaps, if you were listening last week, we ended talking about the art of accountability. If you are a meaningful part of the organization, and senior management has given you the opportunity to truly participate. They've invested in your learning and development. They've invested in giving you that boardroom awareness. Then I think it's fair for senior management to expect a level of performance commensurate with their inviting you to participate in the change process.
In other words, I've told you how you can, what I'd like to see improved and what we can do. So now you expect me to actually do those things.
Well, and not only that, remember in the interview process, the employees got to speak to senior management and say how they might need to change.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And so everyone's accountable in an effective, high-performing organization. Okay, so that leads us to the fourth level, the fourth art. In the personal development, I call that the art of relaxation.
What is that?
Well,
I mean, I know what relaxation is, but
it's a great question.
Bring it into this context here.
Well, it seems like a leap, but I think I can make it fairly clear. If you're engaged in a personal change process, and you have taken the steps through the art of preparation, the art of compassion, the art of responsibility, when you really look in the mirror compassionately, and maybe you recognize you're failing to live up to the responsibility, right? You're connected. You're trying to work through that level of responsibility, but it's not always easy. That's where the personal process of relaxation, and I talk in the book about breathing, meditation, ways for you to get in touch with your deeper self, is going to help you
go with the flow.
Well, yes, and help you understand the seeds of your own behavior that might be subconscious or unconscious that is making it so difficult for you to be successful in the change process. So when you learn how to truly calm yourself, breathing, meditation, centering exercises, and you make that a part of your daily ritual, maybe daily affirmations, you're beginning to see yourself much more clearly and honestly.
Why am I eating? I'm eating, because I'm bored, not really hungry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to stop that kind of mental chatter, we talked about that little voice in your head last week.
Yeah.
That's where the art of relaxation, we live in this world 24/7. But many people, they never do get truly relaxed in order to really look at themselves truly. Even when they dream, they have anxiety dreams. They wake up in a sweat. They wake up, they're not really rested because they don't know how to relax. And if you're truly engaging in a serious change process, you need to look in the mirror even more deeply than you did in the art of preparation. So the art of relaxation is about saying you've been successful this far, but if you want to take it to the next level, then let's look at who we really are. Now, now our listeners are going, "What, Shaner? What does that have to do with business?"
Yeah, how do you translate that into business?
I translate that as the art of clarity and focus. If you're running an organization, you want people to do things that are quote-unquote on strategy. Even at Furman University, I need to understand the mission. If Dr. Shai, our president, is leading by example, which he is, and says, I'm talking about sustainability, I'm talking about engaged learning, I'm talking about, if the faculty members don't understand what that means, if they can't translate that into their own work, how can we effectively actually execute the mission?
That's right.
The Board of Trustees comes up with a strategic plan. If we don't know what that plan is, but we're invited into the process where our opinion is asked. I just filled out a survey yesterday afternoon on sustainability because we've just hired a new director of sustainability, and she's doing, the process of getting to know, well, where are we really with respect to achieving our goals vis-a-vis sustainability? Well, it's the same thing in a Furman is not for profit, but in a for-profit business. If the employees are not clear and focused, that if they do this, it's on strategy. But if I'm doing this other behavior, I could be investing 2 weeks of my life in an off-strategy thing, and it translates as total lack of productivity.
So you're saying go back to the beginning should start with a clear mission statement, focus what the company is aiming for.
And then you have to translate, just like, I'm not Dr. Shai, he has to do his job as the president. My job as just a single faculty member amongst many good faculty members is to translate that in what I do in my philosophy classroom or Asian studies classroom. Translate that if I'm working third shift and I'm running textile machinery in the middle of the night, and I just got this session on boardroom awareness and who's the competition. That's going to help me, but I probably need to know what really counts in terms of being an operator of this machinery. If I get this kind of efficiency, first quality, utilization, scrap, then these are the things that count on my line. Maybe it's a high-speed battery line. Maybe I'm working for Duracell and I'm making AAA batteries in Lancaster, South Carolina. I need to know utilization, efficiency, et cetera, because when I roll up all those numbers, that's going to demonstrate whether or not this plant is reaching its goals. So focus and clarity is very important. The fifth art is if you're really relaxed and calm and looking at yourself deeply now, that's the art of relaxation, all right? Or if you're in the business, if you're really clear and focused, then the fifth art is all about getting it done. I call it the art of conscious action.
That's hard sometimes.
Well, we're talking about change, right?
Yeah. But
no one said it was easy.
Be one of the hardest parts.
Well, it's when you actually begin to execute. So in other words, I call it conscious action because most of your behaviors, your habits that you're trying to change are all subconscious and unconsciously driven. So by the time you've gone through this process and you're at the fourth stage, the art of relaxation, now because you're calmer and you understand the strategy with clarity and focus, if you will, now you can begin to act consciously, like I'm not going to have that Snickers bar.
All right, right there. So much of our change, our behavioral change on a personal level especially, is instead of reaching for that cigarette, instead of reaching for that piece of cheese or second helping of ice cream or whatever, it's how can I put this? Cutting out an action, subtracting an action, and that seems to be a very tough
You have
thing
to bring
do.
It to consciousness.
Okay.
So, in other words, it's conscious action, not unconscious craving, unconscious desiring,
I see what you're saying.
Unconscious drinking.
All right. So when you are consciously reaching for that second helping of cake or whatever, you
consciously say no.
Consciously bring.
Right.
So you're consciously living in the moment and the present.
Right.
Okay.
You're beginning to live your dreams.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. I love that.
Well, that's what it is. At the end of the day, rather than just talking about your dreams, you're actually living your dreams. You're acting consciously. That means you're acting in concert with your intended mission.
So you're not just blindly letting life propel you wherever.
Exactly. You're actually taking steps and creating the results that you intended way back in the art of preparation.
Yeah.
And what is that in business? That's, if you're in business and you're not making a profit, you're not going to be around to employ more people. So I call this the art of execution. Because at the end of the day, at this point, you got to perform.
Yeah, you have to perform, of course.
So on the personal side, it's the art of conscious action. On the business side, it's the art of execution.
Okay.
And in both books, I talk about, where are we in the change process and how do we go about doing that?
Okay, so we have to mentally stay alert with this consciousness. Then the sixth one is living naturally.
Living naturally. That means that beginning to apply this more spontaneously in all aspects of your life. Not just you breaking a particular habit where you're conscious of this particular action at this particular time, or not as you said, taking that second helping. But living naturally is now investigating ways that you can spread the positive effects of what you've been doing. Maybe, as you said, you did overcome smoking. That ought to be a perfect vehicle for you to say, if I can do that, I can lose weight. If I can do that, I can improve my relationships. Because you now have a track record of success.
I see. And so, in other words, let this go out like the proverbial pebble. In
bingo.
Yeah.
And what does that mean in business? It's very simple. Look at your enterprise from end to end. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? Product development and R&D is usually what starts the process. And even before that, you have to understand a consumer need if you're in the consumer products business. So what you do is this new philosophy that you've come to the point of the art of execution. I call it the art of sustainability, because if you don't have, if you don't have. You can extend this to your suppliers. Mm-hmm. Your supplier companies also invest in R&D. Why don't you have their research scientists working on your problems? If you're buying $1 million worth of product or $800 million worth of product, one of my clients is Gillette. They buy a lot of products from large suppliers. Don't just buy the product. Let them know your needs and let them co-develop with you the next generation products.
So your
suppliers, your partners, your customers, across the end-to-end, the whole enterprise, include everyone in this change process and make everyone better.
So that's fantastic. Seems to me there was a movie about this, wasn't there? Pay it on. But if you improve yourself on a personal level, one-on-one, or a company, and you then go out to other companies, other people, and expand, and they in turn expand, this can be a wonderful
success
universe.
Breeds success, yes. People like to succeed. People like to demonstrate that they've been successful changing something, whether it's changing yourself or changing the quote-unquote culture of the business. Once you're successful, it's contagious.
That's true. Now, the seventh one, though, is service.
And I call it service. It's both the art of service in both books. Because, at the end of the day, as we've walked through this whole process, you have been successful. You've even shared it with other people, and other people are now successful.
Even better.
And so what you do now? You give back. So the art of service is not being selfish. We already talked about giving up the ego.
Right, giving up the ego, yeah.
If you have successfully transformed yourself in ways that you're proud of, share it with people. Share the effects.
In other words, help someone.
Help someone
else. Yeah.
Help someone else.
So this is the whole philosophy behind. You said last week of AA.
Exactly.
Like that,
Exactly. So the people who are your mentors in AA are people who are also recovering alcoholics.
Well, you said this last week too. If you're doing something, going on a diet, for instance, and I use that because so many of us always want to lose that extra 10 pounds. But if you said last week, if you engage friends, other people to support you, trusted people.
Everyone likes success, right? Everyone likes, especially if it's in the service of other people.
Oh yeah,
because it's not selfish. And similarly, I'm proud of clients, for example, like Duracell batteries. They want to be the employer of choice in their communities. So if you're making, C's and D batteries in Cleveland, Tennessee, you want to pay your people well. Mm-hmm. You want to give the best benefits. You want to be the biggest contributor to, all of the organizations that are serving the entire community, because you want to be a corporate citizen.
And you want to set a good example.
You want to set a good example because you know what else? You're just going to end up hiring the very best people. The very best people are going to want to work for you. Exactly. So why don't you want to give back? And everyone in the community can be proud of where you work.
That's true. When are these books going to be published, do you think? I want a first copy.
Well, I'm thank you for your interest. I'm hopeful that people will be interested.
Oh, I'm sure they will be. Because, I think you've hit on a good formula here, because most of the self-help books are way out there, very esoteric, and figuratively speaking, you should do da-da-da-da-da, but they don't really give you examples, and it sounds like you actually have not only these 7 steps, but each step has steps within it to tell you how you can accomplish this.
It's kind of a no-nonsense approach. It's about understanding that any kind of serious change process requires a serious commitment.
Right.
Remember, I think in our first session, I was talking about my father, the kind of the Marine drill sergeant.
Right.
It was all about discipline and focus. And my mother, the theologian, was the compassionate
So
side.
no wonder you have such a good combination.
Well, when I was writing these books, suddenly, when people were helping me try to write for another audience, or a general audience, I'm basically saying, even I am the product. We're all a product of all of the causal forces around us.
Exactly.
And when I kind of laid this out, I could see, this whole thing is part father, part mother.
That's fantastic. Listen, I'd love to have you back for another week, but we can't overdo it. So
Yeah.
I do want to cover. You're professor of philosophy. You're chair of the Department of Philosophy at Furman, but you also are a professor of Asian Studies.
Yes.
Give us a quick background of that, because you've met the Emperor of Japan, I understand?
Yes, we had the good fortune of having an audience with His Majesty Akihito.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
When was that?
Oh, a long time ago.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
I'm very proud of the Asian Studies Department at Furman and the Philosophy Department. I'm actually a member of both departments, just happen to be the chair of the Philosophy Department. Our program in international education at Furman has just grown substantially. Since we're just chatting here over coffee, I'll just tell the personal story. When I came to Furman 26 years ago, my advisors at the University of Hawaii were saying, "What? You're going where? You're going into the Bible Belt? You're going to this Baptist university?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I began to kind of, sing the praises of Furman even to them early on, because I said, "Did you know that this university is extremely progressive, and they have what was called, thanks to Professor Emeritus Ed Jones, who still lives in the Greenville community, Furman in the late 1960s adopted a general education requirement called the Asian African requirement, meaning you had to have a certain number of hours in non-Western studies to graduate from Furman University."
Oh, really?
Yes, and this was in the 60s.
That is remarkable.
Yes. So there were two professors who were both historians, Professor Jim Level, who's a professor emeritus now, and Ed Jones, who both live in the Greenville community, both retired, who were kind of the first specialists in Asian studies. And so when I came, they were my mentors. And now I find myself as the senior person, not senior in wisdom, but senior in, I've been there longer. And we have now, get this, at Furman University, 15 faculty specialists representing 9 different disciplines,
Really?
offering over 60 courses in Asian studies, offering 4 years in Japanese, Chinese. We have study abroad programs in China and in Japan, and have had these programs for some time. We think, at the undergraduate level in the Southeast, we're the best, and we're striving to be the best nationally. And we're so supportive of the fundraising that has been able to be done to support international education, and specifically Asian studies. So it is a sheer joy to be teaching at Furman University and sharing, being a part of 2 dynamic departments, philosophy and Asian studies.
That is remarkable. But you have a great love for the Asian, for Japanese in particular.
Yes.
Tell us about the Palace of Peace dedication.
Oh, the Place of Peace.
Place of Peace. I'm sorry.
Well, let me tell you, that's I could talk about that for a long time. Furman University, just last Friday, September 5th, we officially dedicated the Place of Peace, which was formerly a family temple in Nagoya, Japan. Had it been a temple that served a lay community, a Buddhist temple that served a lay community with an assigned priest, you would never, move it from Japan. To our knowledge, this is the only, and I emphasize again, to our knowledge, this is the only time that a temple has actually been deconstructed into 2,400 pieces,
Good grief.
individually labeled every piece, dismantled and then packaged in 4 40-foot shipping containers on the port of Nagoya, shipped on ocean liners across the Pacific, across the equator, through the Panama Canal, through the port of Charleston, then trucked up here where it stayed in a temperature and humidity-controlled warehouse for 2.5 years as we continued to raise the funds to reconstruct this temple on our campus.
How did it come about that this particular temple was able to be moved from Japan?
It's a family temple. In other words, the Suzuki family of Greenville, South Carolina, and Nagoya, living in both parts of the world, they have been members of our Greenville community since the 1960s. And right now, the company, Wellstone Mills, is based here, still in Greenville. It used to be called T&S Mills. But the Suzuki family have been unbelievably generous to the Greenville community, major contributors to the Peace Center. They built the Nippon Yogoto here. And essentially, because they wanted to honor their connection to Greenville, they approached Furman 4.5 years ago and said, would you be interested? We are selling our property in Nagoya, and we would like to work with you on preserving this temple.
Oh, how wonderful.
As really to create an iconic centerpiece for international education at Furman University.
That is wonderful. Where is the temple physically located?
Right next to the, most people know where the bell tower is.
Yes.
On that end of the lake is what we call the Asia Garden that has been completely redone.
It used to have the little, like a tea house?
Yes.
All right, yes.
We have you need to come out and walk through the garden.
I haven't been there
it's absolutely
in
beautiful.
about a month now, yeah.
Well, it's been redone, and Japanese artisans, 13 Japanese artisans began coming here in April of this year, and we had the foundation prepared. 7 wood specialists, all the very best Japanese craftsmen who all they do their entire life is build shrines and temples. So we provided, obviously this was a 4-year project with lots of planning, but the first phase was the woodworkers, the second stage was the tile workers who did the roof, and the third stage was the plaster workers. It is absolutely magnificent.
I'll have to go out.
Please come, invite all your listeners, or I'm inviting you all to come out to Furman, see the Place of Peace.
Yeah.
You know, for 3 sessions here, we've been talking about connection.
Right.
Well, the purpose of the Place of Peace is to connect with yourself. You don't go there just to look at it. You go there and you will recognize it's an opportunity you will want to just sit on the steps, take a walk, calm yourself, and just enjoy the serenity that is occasioned by this Place of Peace. That's why we're calling it the Place of Peace. It's right on the knoll overlooking the Asia Garden. And while you're there, come out to the Cliffs Cottage and see that.
Furman, yes, yes.
So we refer to it as the Cliffs Cottage, the Southern Living Home, but it will become our Center for Sustainability next year.
That is wonderful. You have been a fascinating guest. Fascinating guest.
Thank you, Joan. I've appreciated all 3 sessions.
We've learned so much, and I can't wait for those books to come out.
Thank you.
You have been wonderful. Thank you so much. Our guest for these past 3 Saturdays has been Dr. David Shaner, Professor of Philosophy, Professor of Asian Studies, as well as Chair of the Department of Philosophy at Furman University. I'm Joan Martin, inviting you to tune in to WOLT 103.3 FM next Saturday at 10 o'clock for another fascinating interview, a glimpse into the exciting and cutting-edge world, actually, of academic research right here on Greenville Academically Speaking. Greenville Academically Speaking is a production of the University Center of Greenville.
Greenville Academically Speaking is a weekly presentation of the University Center of Greenville at McAllister Square, a consortium including Clemson, Furman, Lander, Medical University of South Carolina State, USC, and USC Upstate. Greenville Academically Speaking is presented every Saturday morning from 10 till 10:30 here at 103.3 WOLT.